is God alone, and he demands my worship. And because of that, he ended up getting double. This is the depth of it. Look at this language. Some of you have never covenanted with.
Real quick on that. Yeah, Job did get double for his trouble, as they say. And in a lot of Pentecostal, churches, they say that, Job got double for his trouble. That is true. But that's Job. That doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be that way for me. and they say that all the time. Job got double for his trouble. Well, praise God. Good for him. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to happen for me. So we just can't grab a promise like that or grab a story like that and just automatically apply it to my life and think that's how the Bible works. It doesn't work like that. But that's how these false teachers use the Bible like that.
God, you've made agreements, you made commitments, but you never made covenant. And that's what this looks like. But everybody say full tenth. Okay, what is a full tenth? This doesn't even really make sense to me, and let me tell you why. Because mathematically, it's paradoxical. A tenth is 10%. So when you use the phrase full tenth, that sounds crazy. Let me help you. It's a heart posture. In agricultural society, if you had 10 sheep and you said, well, how many would you give if you had 10 sheep? 1. So a tenth would be 1. So if you gave 1 sheep, you have a choice. Maybe I'll give God the one that's maimed and crippled and can't procreate.
By the way, I find this so ironic and so weird. Because when you read Malachi chapter 3 and you go back to Malachi chapter 1, that was exactly what was happening. See, the priests were offering all the lame animals and all the food and all the garbage that people didn't even want. That is why if you go back to Malachi chapter 1, God is rebuking the priests because he's saying, look, why don't you give this stuff to your governor to see if your governor will take it? And what God was implying there was, no, your governor won't take it because this stuff is the stuff that people don't want anyway. So consequently, when they were tithing, when they were offering it to God, God wasn't accepting it because they were offering the animals that nobody wanted to begin with. So so God was saying, you're not giving me a tenth. God is saying, you're giving me nothing because you're just giving me the stuff that you guys don't want anyway. And remember what God said, when you offer an animal, make sure it's an animal, without spot or blemish. Well, they weren't doing that. So when they were tithing, God says, you have robbed me of tithes and offerings. It's because they were giving it, but God wasn't accepting it because it was basically the animals and stuff that nobody wanted. That's the context of Malachi 3. But now he's going to use that to basically say, so we got to give God our best. And that best is the 10th of our money. But then in addition to that 10th, we have to give the offering in addition to the 10th. That's where he's going to go with it. Very slick and manipulative, guys.
Maybe I'll give God the one I don't want. Maybe I'll give God the one that already cannot multiply itself. So you technically gave a tenth, but you didn't give a full tenth because okay, watch this for your notes. Here's what.
No, God in Malachi 3 would say you gave nothing because God didn't receive it. That's why he said you're robbing me of it because you're doing it, but I'm not receiving it. So basically God is saying you gave nothing. So that point's not true either.
A full tenth looks like a tenth. Here's what it looks like. Watch. What's first plus what's best. This is the equation in the spirit. See, in the natural realm, you can say, oh, God, I gave you a tithe. I gave you a tenth. No, did you give what was first? And did you give what was best? That is the true definition of full tenth. And by the way, I didn't say this in the other services, but we're just doing a very deep Bible study right now. Melchizedek shows up and declares the blessing.
Are we doing a deep dive in the Bible? No, we're doing a deep dive in Mike Signorelli's own personal interpretation. That's what we're doing a deep dive in.
Abram wait until he was blessed to give the tithe? It's almost like the first thing he did was tithe.
But again, that's completely opposite of what Jacob did. Jacob said, no, God, you bless me first, then I'll tithe. But then he's saying, no, but Abraham did it before, which he did. But guess what? So they're two contradictory stories, Mike.